Good morning and welcome to another edition of Karmayogi Talks. Lots of people wonder what is the Indian consumer? How is the Indian consumer changing? And what will it look like in the future? How have they changed and how will she look like in the future? And nobody better to explain that than Sanjiv Mehta. And let me give you his background as to why I think he's the perfect guy to do this. Sanjiv Mehta has grown up in the Hindustan lever system, and he was the CEO of Hindustan Lever for 10 years, has made it into one of the crown jewels in Unilever worldwide. He has worked in India, Indonesia, Africa, and a whole series of other countries. So he's seen this around the world. And he's very, very down to earth in terms of understanding the consumer. There's probably not a single district in India which he hasn't been to and visited stores and distributors. There's probably not a single language that is there in India that he has not heard on his field trips. Everywhere Sanjeev goes, he will first go visit retailers and consumers. And so over the years, he has personally met a very large number of them. He is also on the board of Air India, Dr. Reddy's, Denon, and others. And he was the head of FICCI for a year. He has his PhD, honorary PhD from the Xavier Institute of Management. He is the Business Leader of the Year by the Economic Times, and a whole series of other honors, which I don't want to go through. He is continuing now to invest in India through his fund, El Catterton. So, Sanjeev, thank you for joining us. We are delighted. And without any further ado, I would just request you to launch into your explanation of the Indian consumer.
Thank you. Thank you, Adil. Absolute pleasure to speak to you and to the audience. And thank you so much for inviting me. What I'm going to do, Adil, now is share a presentation and giving a perspective of Indian consumer, India consumption story. And then we can pick up the conversation. Yeah? All right. So what I'm going to do now is take about 25, 30 minutes, is share the story of India and consumption. So just to give you a background, I worked for about 32 years with Unilever. And for 21 years, I had the privilege to lead Unilever's businesses in 25 countries. And that has given me a huge amount of perspective on the consumers, on the consumption in different parts of the world. Now, it's a reality that the world is facing several challenges, whether it is from a climate perspective, whether it is the inequality, whether it is geopolitics, whether it is trust deficit, or whether it is tariffs and trade deficit today. But these are huge amount of challenges. And when one talks about challenges, one must recognize that there was a period which once the Fed chairman had talked about as an era of great moderation. That period has changed. And this becomes relevant when we try to understand the consumers and consumption story. And when I look at it from a lens of India, there are certain trends. Now, these are trends as opposed to fads, which are shaping the cultural evolution of the Indian consumer. The first one is expression amplified. You know, when we were growing up, हमें बताया जाता था कि ज़्यादा show नहीं करना चाहिए. But today, people are expressing themselves. They want to tell what they eat, where they travel, what they wear, what they dress. Yeah, is what are the kind of thoughts they have. And this then has an impact on many categories. For instance, fashion, travel, beauty, all this is impacted by this trend of expression amplified. The second is limitless now. Again, there was a time when we were told that when you start earning is preserve your money for a rainy day. Today, is people want to experience. They do not want to wait till they retire before they can use the funds. They want to experience life as it is. So this again has an impact on different categories. The other is the righteous anger. This stems from a resentment of the consumers or the people at large being denied their due. If you remember the famous one, the Arab Spring, and how Hosni Mubarak was overthrown. This was a time when I was running Unilever's business in North Africa and Middle East. And one had seen it at close quarters, how the people revolted to throw out the dictator. The other trend which is shaping our country is search for authenticity. On one hand, you need the latest gadgets which are being used by the consumers in the West. But on the other hand, you want to go back to your roots. Yeah, and that's what gets manifested in people clamoring for natural products, Ayurvedic products, chemical-free products, paraben-free products. The other important bit is unstereotype. Yeah, this is about, again, despite what is happening across the Atlantic, we must understand that this is not something which is going to remain. People are extremely conscious about the prejudices and they want to get away from the stereotype images, stereotype caste, and they want to unstereotype. The other wonderful bit is the thrill of purpose. Now, whether it's a corporation or whether it's a brand, consumers are very keen to know what is behind the functional attributes of a brand and what a company does beyond making money. And that is the reason why brands with purpose grow faster and companies with purpose thrive. The other important bit is people power. Yeah, today is gone are the days when people are going to be sidelined and they will accept whatever comes their way. They are becoming the harbinger of change in the society. But on the other hand, there is the other face of consumption. This is about people are spending a lot more money than they really have. They're taking a lot of credit to spend on consumption. They want to buy things which they don't need to create impression that they won't last and on people they don't care about. So it's also very important that while consumption will drive the economy, one must also pause and reflect on the conscious consumption. Now, let me break up India from a lens of living standard measure. Now, living standard measure was a proprietary tool of Unilever, and this goes beyond socio-economic. So here one looks at the lifestyle, one looks at the kind of gadgets you have at home, whether you're living in a joint family or you're living in a micro family, all those factors go into account. But there is very clearly a linkage also with your annual income. So if I were to break up India into 4 big clusters, the first would be the India Alpha, which we call it the LSM 10 plus. Now, these are the people, about 3% of the total households, about 10 million of the total households. But these guys have got the purchasing power of the West. Yeah. Now, they are big travelers. Now, if they have to pick up a Louis Vuitton bag, they may not buy it from India. They are travelers. They'll pick it up from Paris, London, or New York. The other is the upper middle class. Yeah. This is still, might be in percentages low, but we are talking about 36 million. Now, 36 million and 10 million at the upper end, 46 million, you're talking about the size of population, which would be more than 200 million. So the percentages may be just about 14. But here, these are the people which are leading the trend of premiumization. Premiumization as in higher order benefits. Then you have the archetype, middle class, 30% of the population. They are the strivers. Here you see dual income earners aspire for education, better education for the kids, aspiring for a little bigger house. And then you have a large section of the population, which is 178 million, which is LSM 0 to 3. or when you look at it from this lens, the bottom of pyramid. Now, we must remember, this bottom of pyramid is not the pyramid of the past. Yeah. India today has one of the largest welfare schemes in terms of providing free food grains. So today, there's virtually no Indian who goes to bed hungry. Yeah. But these are the people who need to be uplifted. And these are the people who, when you look at it from a lens of needs, wants, and desires, are more in the space of need. Now, when you look at this pyramid, immediately a thought will come to your mind that if you want to be a big player in India, if you have to be a category leader, then you need to be able to straddle the price benefit pyramid. I'll talk more about it as we go, because that is when you're able to reach the masses of the country across the length and breadth of urban and rural India and enrich their lives. Now, from a dimensions of growth, there are essentially three ways of growing a business. There are more users, get in more people to use your brand or the category, which we generally refer to as increasing penetration. The other is more usage, which is making people consume more or increasing the frequency of consumption. A very simple example, if I may tell you, is if you make people brush their teeth instead of once a day to twice a day, it would mean more usage. Yeah. But those people who are not using today a toothpaste, but using Datun, for instance, or using a tooth powder, if you bring them into the category, then that would be more users or penetration. And then there is premiumization, which is higher order benefits. Yeah, from a simple basic toothpaste, if you want to get into gum care or you want to get into sensitive teeth, then again, that's the offering that you get at a much higher price, and that's what premiumization is about. So this is what I was referring to. At the low income level, you have the affordable brands. At the middle class, you have value for money. At the affluent, you have premium offerings. So if you again look at it from another lens, you are talking about moving from needs, wants, and desires. Now, let me give you two examples of what I mean when I talk about price benefit pyramid. Yeah. These are the examples which I've taken up from Hindustan Unilever portfolio. If you look at Clinic Plus, that's a family health brand. Then you move up the ladder, you have a mass beauty brand called Sunsilk. Then you have a damage care, which is Dove. Then you have a specialist anti-dandruff shampoo, which is Clear. Then you have a salon kind of hair at home, which is Tresemme. And then you have a specialist high-end neutral, high-end naturals, which is Indulekha. Yeah. So these are the benefit spaces. So HUL's portfolio, HUL has about 55% share of the hair market, and they straddle the benefit pyramid. At the same time, through different pack sizes, you straddle the price point as well. Now, different brands are priced differently for the same pack, as well as, for instance, one of the largest selling SKU is the 1 rupee sachet of Clinic Plus. Yeah, it is widely distributed. It is one of the largest selling SKUs, and people who do not have much money, for them, the challenge is not about looking at price per mil or price per gram. It is about unit outlay. But if they want to have a great squeaky clean hair, tangle-free hair, and they have limited money, they may take out 1 rupee and go and buy a sachet of Clinic Plus. On the other hand, if people have more money, they would never use a sachet. They would use a bottle. And if they have more money, they would use a bottle with a pump pack, which makes it much more convenient. And instead of using a family health brand, they may use a Dove or a Tresemme. So that is how a good company, which is a market leader in a category, segments the consumers and caters to the need at different price points and for different benefits. Similarly, I'll give you an example of tea. Now, again, in tea, HUL is the market leader, and they have different brands. You have Taza and Ruby at the bottom, You have Red Label, then you have Taj Mahal, then you have Lipton at the top. And again, there are different pack sizes with different price points, and they meet the different needs of the consumers. Yeah. Now, in a country like India, the wonderful position is that there is no category. I repeat, there is no category which is anywhere close to maturity. So you can grow, like I said, by driving penetration, increasing consumption, or by premiumization. And in India, growth does not happen just by taking market share from the competitor, because growth happens by increasing the pie, increasing the size of the category, which we often refer to as market development. Market development is the science and art of bringing consumers into the category who hitherto have not been in the category. Now, I'll give you a small example to give you an idea how premiumization and market development takes place. If you pick up a laundry category, again, a company like Hindustan Unilever has various brands. They have Wheel at the bottom. Then they have, which is basically basic cleaning powder. The second is Rin, which is on a whiteness platform. And then you have Surf Excel. But even within Surf Excel, there are different propositions. Yeah, there are different formats. At the bottom, you have is the detergent bar. Then you have Easy Wash. Then you have Quick Wash. Then you have the powder for washing machines. Then you have liquids. And then you have capsules. Now, the benefits are varying, though all of them do the job of cleaning your clothes. Yeah, but somewhere they will remove much tougher stains. Somewhere they'll be soft on your clothes. Somewhere it will be easy to use. But the important bit to remember is, for a cost per wash, the price moves from 1x to 7x when you move from a basic powder of Surf Excel to move to a capsule of Surf Excel. The other important bit about India, which we must recognize, India is not a homogeneous country. Before running India and South Asia for Unilever, I used to be chairman of a region called North Africa, Middle East, which was from Oman in the east to Morocco in the west, and all the CNN countries in between. Now, I can tell you that those 20 countries had more in common than the 28, 29 states of India. There, it is one predominant language called Arabic, though there are pockets of French influence, but it is predominant Arabic. There is one predominant religion called Islam, and there is one predominant pan-Islamic culture. Now, in India, if you travel around the country, हमारी भाषा अलग होती है, our palates are different, our tastes are different, how we define beauty is different, and of course, the socio-economic conditions are very different. So treating India as a homogeneous country, we would be doing a disservice. So India needs to be treated as a heterogeneous country if you want to get a deep understanding of what this means. Now, let me bring this to life. What during my days in Hindustan Unilever did, we had a strategy called Winning in Many Indias, and we broke up India into 14 clusters. They were relatively homogeneous clusters. Yeah, but how they came to life. Say today, if you were to go and pick up a Surf Excel in different parts of India, the pack would be same, the graphics would be similar, but the formulation inside is different depending on the hardness of the water in each cluster. If you pick up Red Label Brook Bond, again, the pack would be similar if you go across the country, but the blend inside is different depending on the palate of the consumers. Now, I'm a Punjabi. If you go to Punjab, हम लोग दूध चाय में नहीं डालते हैं, चाय दूध में डालते हैं. But if you go to UP, Eastern UP, you'll require a much stronger cup of tea. So you need to have a blend which is different. Similarly, if you pick up Lux soap, depending on the consumer choice and preference, the pack is same, the color of the bar is same, but the perfume inside is different. That is how we brought the winning in many India strategy to life. But of course, we had a different strategy. The jobs to be done are different because the consumers are at a different stage of evolution in different parts of India. Just picking up my old example of laundry and Surf Excel, in some parts of India, we are driving penetration with Surf Excel. In some parts of India, we are increasing the consumption. And in some parts of India, for instance, like in Tamil Nadu, we had converted a large number of consumers from powders to liquid. So we have done the job of market development. Now, talking about consumption, I can't but talk about brands. So let me share with you that what makes a great brand today. And I would talk about the three axes: the purpose, performance, and personalization. Now, purpose is, what does a brand stand for beyond the functional attributes? And I'll talk about this in a moment. The other important bit is performance. Now, performance is not just about the basic things you require from a category, a brand in a certain category, but also whether the brand is occupying the emotional space in the minds of consumers. And the third is, increasingly, when I talk about personalization, if you're a mass product, then of course you're not going to personalize it for each 1.4 billion Indians, but you will personalize it for cohorts of Indians. What I talked about in winning in many Indias. Now, in consumer goods, innovation is a lifeblood. And a great innovation is about meeting the unmet need of the consumers. That is getting an insight. Many times consumers are not able to articulate what they want. And that is where the expertise comes in, when you are able to convert raw information and convert them into insights. The second important bit is, how do you differentiate your product or your brand? Many times the differentiated technology could give you a competitive edge. But the other important lens is that you need to be able to appropriate a large part of the value chain it has to be called a great innovation. Look at Apple. Today, the trillions of dollars of market cap of Apple rests in US. So while we may be doing huge amount of assembly, the value doesn't get captured in India. Similarly, if you're an app maker, which is being used in Apple phones, is the app maker is not making the kind of money which Apple does, because they have created this ecosystem and they are able to appropriate a large part of the value chain. Coming to purpose, there's a very famous quote of Mark Twain: there are two most important days in your life, the day you're born and the day you find out why. Now, just so that you can relate to what I'm talking about, the Surf Excel story. Now, in laundry detergents, again, Hindustan Unilever is a market leader, and Surf Excel is India's first non-food billion-dollar brand. And how Surf Excel has built the brand, let me share a communication with you. Number one, देख क्या रे, तू मारे इसको, तुझे अब भी देखता हूँ, मारता है, अभी खुश है।
दाग लगने से अगर कुछ अच्छा होता है तो दाग अच्छे हैं ना। सर्फ एक्सेल, दाग अच्छे हैं,
वापस नहीं करना। देख के दिखाना।
से निकलो हेलो हेलो यार, इंद्रधन के जैसे रह लो तारे,
अपना मार लो ना। सब खत्म बाहर आ जा सब खत्म हो गया
मैं तुझमें तुझ में अपनी दोनों की है एक ही दास्तां अपनों के संग रंग लाए संग
नमाज पढ़ कर आता हूँ बाद में रंग पड़ेगा
अपनेपन के रंग से औरों को रंगने में दाग लग जाए तो दाग अच्छे हैं सर्फ एक्सेल
Now, if we talk about Surf Excel, is Surf Excel mein, if you were to ask a consumer, when you talk about Surf Excel, what comes to your mind? Invariably, they will talk about dirt is good or daag achhe. Now, daag achhe mein, what are we doing? We are not talking about in our communication anywhere that we have got a great molecule in Surf Excel, we have got enzymes in Surf Excel, they'll remove the tough stains. हम ये कह रहे हैं कंज्यूमर को कि मदर को जो है कि आप अपने बच्चों को खेलने दो अगर बच्चे खेलेंगे नहीं तो बड़े नहीं होंगे ग्रो नहीं करेंगे डेवलप नहीं करेंगे लेकिन the subliminal message that we are giving to the consumers is, hey mother, don't worry, let them play and get dirty. There is Surf Excel to look after the clothes. That's how you build a great brand. Now, brand association, it starts with the features and attributes, it goes to the benefits, and then there are the beliefs and values. That's how you build a great brand. Now, features and attributes would be removing tough stains. Yeah, is clearly in some cases it would be a powder, some cases it would be a liquid, or it could be a pod or a capsule. Then there are the benefits that without destroying your clothes, it will remove the stains and remove the dirt. But the beliefs and values, that becomes difficult to create, but once created, it could become enduring. Many times, a consumer does not have a relationship with a product, but they have a relationship with a brand. And brand at the end of the day is a set of promises. So a brand is a set of promises, and a good brand is a promise delivered. Now, what makes a great brand is the path, the promise, the acceptance, the trust, and the hope. Now, when we look at great brands, and when you ask a consumer, what do they stand for? Immediately a line comes to the mind. If it is Close-Up, it stands for Fresh Breath Confidence. If it is Dove, it's about 1 quarter moisturizer. Yeah. And similarly, if you talk about irreverence, immediately what will come in the mind is Virgin. Or if you talk about individual performance, the brand that will come to your mind is Nike. That is how you create a brand. Yeah, it occupies the emotional space in the minds of the consumer. Now, we must remember that great brands are never built overnight. That it has built over years and it has to be nurtured and treasured. The timeless brands, importantly, they become relevant over generations. Of course, they renovate themselves, they innovate themselves and become contemporary. But they never veer away from the core of what they stand for. And trust always comes on foot, but once you let them down, it leaves quickly and on horseback. Now, increasingly, the consumers are very conscious that this is not just about a brand. We also want to know what is the company behind the brand. And I'm a big believer in purpose, corporate purpose. And I believe that a company should have an objective which goes beyond making money. And when you make profits through purpose, they become much more enduring and your brands and your business become much more sustainable. In HUL, we had a very clear objective. And this was a very simple statement we used to say, but it was a very profound statement that what is good for India is good for Hindustan Unilever. And that used to get reflected in all the activities that we used to do. Just to give you an idea, agar aap Hindustan Unilever ko dekhen, ki most of our brands, they use water. And in India, despite the mighty Himalayan rivers, if we are not able to solve our water problem in the next decade, 2 decades, the supply of water will be half the demand. Importantly, our groundwater tables are going down significantly. So rather than just talk about the problem or bitch about the problem, HUL had said, we will become part of the solution. So they started working in villages. First started with a handful of villages, and over the 10, 12 years, we have worked in thousands of villages, and we have created a water potential of 3.9 trillion liters. Now, just imagine 3.9 trillion liters is enough to meet the drinking water needs of the entire country for 3 years. But that's still a drop in the ocean, because 80% of the water is consumed for agriculture. But if each water adopts the knowledge and the reservoir of knowledge that we have created, then slowly we would be able to alleviate a water problem. Similarly, we have become plastic neutral. Yeah, and plastic is one of the greatest invention of a lifetime, but it has become a public enemy #1 because it remains in the environment. So it's very important for all manufacturers of consumer goods to take steps to ensure that not only you have plastic or a substrate or a polymer which is recyclable, but take steps to clean the environment. So we've done several initiatives with the whole idea that the objective of the business is not just about making money, but is making a difference to the society. Shakti is one of the great projects where we have 200,000 women in remote villages where traditional distribution would not be cost effective, and HUL has made them entrepreneurs. Now, that's when you empower a woman, you empower a family. Yeah, it enhances a woman's dignity in the family, in the society, it empowers them. And from a HUL perspective, it generates a turnover of over $500 million.
आठवां हम पढ़े हैं बस, फिर बाद में शादी हुई गई।
शादी होके यहाँ आए तो देहात में पर्दा तो होता ही है, तो दूसरे के दबाव में आ जाते हैं।
मम्मी पापा से कितना पैसा हम एडजस्ट करेंगे, अपने ऊपर तो सेल्फ डिपेंड होना चाहिए। फिर मुझे ये हिंदुस्तान लीवर वाले मिले,
तब वो कहने लगे हिंदुस्तान लीवर का काम है, आप अपनी बिजनेस अपने घर में कर लो।
2-3 दिन का मेरा बच्चा था, लेकिन हमें दिक्कतें थी, तो इसलिए शक्ति मैम ने कहा नाम मेरा लिख लो, मैं करूंगी। फिर तब से मैं ज्वाइन हो गई हूँ।
हम शक्ति डीलर बनने से हमारे बच्चे हमारा इज्जत करते हैं।
अपने बच्चे को हमने इंग्लिश मीडियम स्कूल में दाखिल किया।
मेरे हाथ में पैसा है, अपना जितना खर्चा करना चाहते हैं खर्चा कर लेते हैं।
तो यही सोचते हैं कि हमारा भगवान ऐसा ही दिन दूनी रात चौगनी पे बनाते रहे, मेरा परिश्रम सफल हो, मेरे बच्चे कामयाब।
Just talking about a corporate purpose, when you have a purpose that you pick up of making a difference to the society and the context, and if it is in some manner linked to the business that you do, so in this case, whether it is women entrepreneurs or it is saving water in the country, then it becomes much more sustainable. And this is something which you could pursue with scale and make a big difference. So there is a slight difference between charity and what I talk about as the corporate purpose. The other important bit, which is reshaping consumption in the country, is data and technology. And classically, the consumer goods used to be a linear value chain. You would have insights. Based on insights, you would have innovations. Then you would create product and hopefully look at product superiority. Then you would distribute it. Then you would market it. And that's how the chain ran. And in between, of course, you will ensure that you either source or make. Now, what technology is doing is, instead of a linear value chain, you are creating ecosystems. Ecosystems of consumers, ecosystem of customers, and also ecosystem of operations with data and technology center stage.
India, with its diverse population of over 1 billion people, is undergoing a digital transformation. Nearly 2/3 of its population uses the internet regularly through mobile devices, which are becoming more affordable. These have been supported by Digital India, the government's roadmap to a robust digital infrastructure, expansive internet connectivity, and increased digital literacy. HUL has been on this journey with its industry-defining transformation program called Reimagine HUL that has perpetuated the mantra of rapid experimentation over the years, from multitude of experiments to holistic business transformation. Reimagine HUL anchors a connected ecosystem across consumers, customers, and operations enabled by data, technology, and analytics at its core. For consumers, our cutting-edge AI hub is bringing together capability across trend watching, sizing, testing, production, thereby reducing lead time from months to days. These capabilities come together seamlessly, enabling us to land curated, on-trend innovations rapidly. Experimenting early with new-age marketing tools like beauty tech and new media vehicles ensures consumers are experiencing our products and services like never before. In the connected customer ecosystem, we are sustaining our distribution advantage through competitive moats across demand generation, capture, and fulfillment. Our eB2B ordering app Shikhar now reaches over 1 million stores. We are also wiring up the eB2B backend with Samadhan. It enables anytime ordering, high assortment, and reliable next-day delivery, which is critical to be competitive. Our supply chain is undergoing a transformation across the verticals of plan, source, make, and deliver. The end-to-end integration will be enabled through a nerve center, which will combine the 4 verticals to enable real-time information flow and intelligent decision-making. Our Dapada factory has been recognized externally by the World Economic Forum as India's first digital and sustainability lighthouse. Data is now treated as an enterprise asset. We are integrating internal and external data sets and democratizing it with tools like Chanakya and Livewire. Using prescriptive and predictive analytics across the value chain like peak forecasting and assortment planning is constantly unlocking fuel for growth, making HUL truly future fit. We are also investing in the right talent, creating new partnerships, and building an agile organizational structure to accelerate this journey. Reimagine HUL is driving end-to-end business impact and is a vital program to stay competitive and future fit in the digital age.
The reason I was sharing with you about technology and data, because the way the shoppers are buying, the way the consumers are consuming, the way the new generation innovation is happening, the way the brands are reaching the consumer, it is being facilitated by technology in a very big way. And India, through the digital public infrastructure, is at the forefront of adopting many things far ahead of many other countries. Now, when you look at from a corporation's perspective, there are 3 important axes of a high performance. One is the mindset, the other is the capabilities, and the third is high performance anatomy. In a country like India, you need to have a growth mindset. Yeah, India, 62% of a GDP is driven by private consumption. I'm of the firm opinion that India will drive consumption this decade and beyond in the world. It is one of the most attractive consumption markets in the world. Yeah, the other is to win. You need capabilities which are distinctive and hard to replicate. It would depend on the kind of business you have and the capability and the kind of categories you are into. So you will have to pick up those handful of capabilities but make them best in class. And the third important bit is the performance anatomy. It is about your purpose and values, your culture, the structures, the people management, how agile you are, how flexible you are, how adaptable you are. That's what makes a difference. Now, India is a very attractive market. Over the last 2 years, I would have addressed more than a dozen global boards on the India opportunity and also what it takes to succeed in India. Now, take an example of this. We talk about success. During the 10 years, the market cap of HUL had moved from $12 billion to $76 billion. This made it more valuable than some of the global companies like Colgate-Palmolive or Kraft Heinz or Reckitt Benckiser or Kellogg's or General Mills. Now, that is the kind of value you can create in the country. So it is attractive because that the growth opportunity that exists in the country. And if you build capabilities and if you're able to reach the wide spectrum of the country, then you can build a huge business and a profitable business. What are the learnings to win consumers in India? The business and the brand should be a force for good. The troika of high performance is the mindset, the distinctive capabilities, and the high performance anatomy. The troika of building great brands is purpose, personalization, and performance. We must remember that consumers are local and not global. Global consumer is a myth. And if in India you want to be a category leader, you have to straddle the price-benefit pyramid. You can operate in niches and still have a wide business, big business, but you can't be a leader if you don't straddle the price-benefit pyramid. And we must remember that India is not one homogeneous country. So you need a distinct strategy for different parts of the country, for different segments of consumers to grow your business and build your business. And I remain a firm believer in India, India's consumption story, and which will play out for many years in this decade and beyond. So Adil, that was my story.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanjiv. That's a very crisp articulation of what is happening to the Indian consumer. And you've given a very good series of comments about companies and how companies can succeed in India also. I wanted to just talk a little bit. Some of the questions we're getting have to do with the Indian consumer and how you visited many villages, right? And how is the consumer in the village changed in the last 5 years? And how do you see them changing over the next 10?
Yeah, thank you, Adil. You know, there was a time when the rural consumer was pretty much cut off from what's happening in the world. Today, thanks to technology, they not only know what is happening in urban India, but they are also aware of what's happening in the bigger world. Yeah, so they have access to information. So rural consumers are becoming increasingly discerning. They want better brands, they want better benefits. But of course, the biggest constraint is today the outlay of money. And when they have more money, you'd be surprised. Some of our brands like Dove, for instance, one would think that this is a premium brand, it will sell only in urban India. But no, even the rural consumers today, when they can afford, they would want a higher order benefit. And that's how the world is changing today. So just saying that rural means it is going to be only a Lifebuoy country or a Clinic Plus country, no. You need to be able, but if you're a smart business, you will have a pack size which can enable them to afford even a premium brand.
It's great, Sanjeev. And how do you see that changing over the next 10 years, especially as India goes towards becoming a 10 trillion, 15 trillion economy?
If I just take a step back and look at give you some picture about from where we have come and where we are going. Yeah, the last 50 years of British rule in India, we grew at about 0.5% on a carbon basis. And we were bereft of resources when India gained its independence. The size of the economy then at today's price was less than the market cap of the company I led. We were such a small country. And for the first 40 years after independence, we grew at about 3.5%. Post-liberalization, last 3.5 decades, we grew at 6.5%. Now, all of us aspire today that maybe we should accelerate the growth from the 6.5 to 7.5, 8. But even for the time being, you look at 6.5%. And if you had 3.5, 4% of inflation, you're talking of a nominal growth of 10, 11%. That means every 7 years, a $4 trillion economy will double. So we aren't out of the place when we talk about that India will be the growth engine for many years to come. Yeah. And when we look at that pyramid that we have created, as people move up from the bottom of the pyramid to a lower middle class, from a lower middle class to the upper middle class, they shift from that the basic needs that they have to wants and desires. So one of the things which will play out in a very big way is this whole trend about premiumization. And when I'm talking about premiumization, I'm not talking about the Louis Vuitton kind of brands. I'm talking about relative premiumization. I'm not talking of prestige or mastery. So premium or higher order benefits, that's what the consumer will be looking at. Consumer will become more discerning. And India will have to up the game on quality in a very big manner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Today, one of the challenges, Adil, we have is we do not have Indian brands, which we could call as global brands.
Right.
Yeah. And today, with the scale and size of the Indian market, and if we can compete on cost, on quality and service and innovation, then we should be able to not only conquer a large slice of the Indian market, but start putting our footprints on the global market.
I think that's a very good point because PM often talks about very few global brands coming out of India. And are you optimistic about seeing that in the next 10 years?
I am very, just to give you an idea, one of the stories or the secret recipe behind Hindustan Unilever's success was that our cost base was even lower than Unilever in China. Yeah. So we can do it. But a company like Hindustan Unilever had also a huge focus on innovation. There are about 800, 900 technicians and scientists who work in the R&D center of HUL with over 100 PhDs. So the point that I'm trying to make is India will have to become a product nation. And once we become a product nation, which are driven by innovation ecosystem, then I see no reasons why we won't be able to build global brands.
Oh, that's terrific. And can you also, Sanjiv, talk a little bit about one move from in terms of the consumers that they're going towards premium brands, their aspirations are very high.
Yeah.
Are you also seeing the Indian consumer moving more money into spending on certain categories? Are they spending less on food and more on leisure? Or how do you see that changing?
That again is happening in different segments of the population. If you look at early part of this millennium, when the mobile phones came in, a consumer started spending a lot of money on telephony compared to the past. Yeah. Then we reached a period around 2015-16 where, thanks to Jio, the cost of data crashed. Yeah. And data became very cheap. And that resulted in the new business models coming up. E-commerce, quick commerce, direct to consumers were all facilitated by our digital public infrastructure and the cost of data plummeting in the country. So if we look at today, the way India entertains itself, the way India educates itself, the way India consumes itself, the way India gets knowledge or news has changed dramatically. So today, you know what's happening in the world. And that aspiration for a better brand with a higher order benefit is indeed going up tremendously. And if we put money in the hands of consumers, it is bound to. If I look at a country today, there was a time when Indians were not consuming the recommended daily calorie that we are talking about. Today, most Indians get the recommended daily calorie of around 20 to 50. But where the problem is, we are short or deficient on minerals, vitamins, and micronutrients. So while we are not spending, or we would not be today conscious that we need to get more food because Indians are consuming, people are gravitating towards health and wellness products. Yeah, that's opening up in a very big manner. So as India evolves, I believe today we are at about $2,500, $3,000 per capita. The next big inflection point will happen around $5,000. Then it will happen around $10,000. And categories which are nascent today or virtually non-existent will become big categories in the future. And that's the reason I say, Adil, there is no consumer goods company in the world today in whose lens India does not feature as a strategic priority. For some who are at a prestige end are waiting to see at what point they enter. Others who are at the belly of the market, if they have not made it big, they know it. In the future, if they don't win India, they won't win globally.
That's terrific to be. That's terrific that everyone wants to come here.
Absolutely.
I think that's a wonderful thing. I wonder if you could comment on, in terms of the distribution and e-commerce, how has e-commerce and quick commerce changed the consumption patterns for consumers in India?
Yeah, that's a very valid question, Adil, and that is uppermost in the minds of many users, in the minds of many traders and many consumers. If I today just zoom back and look at the construct of the market, the quick commerce is about 3% of the market. E-commerce is about 7% of the market. Modern trade is about 15% of the market. Institutions are about 3-4% of the market. And then you have 70% of the market, which is mom and pop store or the grocery stores, or what we call as the distributive trade. Yeah. Now, the 10% of the market which has been taken up by e-commerce and quick commerce are, of course, of recent origin. And the modern trade stores basically started blossoming in India at the beginning of the millennium. So we are saying in about 25 years, we have about 25% of the channels which were virtually non-existent 25 years back, today occupying 25% of the market. Now, this change will continue. But let me be emphatic in stating that unlike many other countries where the evolution has happened, that you have moved from the grocery or mom and pop stores to supermarkets to hypermarkets, and then to e-commerce, India will be a country of and. There will be e-commerce and quick commerce which will have a higher share. Modern trade will become entrenched, but instead of hypermarkets, there'll be more supermarkets. But general trade, even after 10 years, the share will come down, but will remain the largest channel, but with a difference. The difference is they'll become a highly digitized general trade channel. That's the difference that will be.
That's terrific. So the last thing that I wanted to ask about is, how has the ability to pay for things and the evolution of the payment system in India with UPI, how has that affected consumers, and how are consumers changing as a result of this?
Today, thanks to UPI, today more digital transactions are being done in India than in combined Europe or in the US. And in many ways, it has facilitated a different new business models. Today, even if you go to a fruit vendor, you will find him accepting money in UPI. Yeah. Even many times, a roadside beggar flashes a QR code at you. That's the reality of India. Yeah. Now, if you look at the psychographic of a consumer, if they don't have to take out money from their wallet and give it to you, the tendency to spend more becomes much more profound. Yeah. But it is also leading to many different habits. Now, one of the things which is unique to India is cash against delivery. This is very Indian kind of thing, that they place an order on e-commerce and quick commerce, and it is cash against delivery. And when someone comes to deliver you, they say, no, thank you, I've changed my mind, and they take it back. Yeah. Now, these are also very unique kind of habits which are coming up. But if not just, if I look at how the habits are changing, when we were growing up, our mothers would manage the pantry in the house. At the beginning of the month, they would go in the pantry, make a list. What are the things running out? What do they need for a month? And then take that list and go to the nearest Sakari Bandar or to a grocery store, give the list, and the stuff would get delivered to your home. And when quick commerce started, I was under the impression that certain categories like ice cream, for instance, lend themselves to quick commerce very well. Here you are watching India play England, the 5th day of the 5th test. And here is Siraj coming into bowl, and you want to celebrate and call ice cream. You immediately place an order on quick commerce. In 20 minutes, someone will come and deliver to you a Magnum ice cream. Yeah, works beautifully. But how habits changed is the housewife or the man in the house, they've stopped doing pantry planning. Even a category like toothpaste and soaps, they'll wait for it to get over. A morning में जाएंगे, oh, टूथपेस्ट खत्म हो गई है, let me place an order. और 20 मिनट में टूथपेस्ट आ जाएगा. I had not expected that this is how the consumer behavior will change. Now, technology is reshaping the way, the behavior of the consumers, and also in many ways facilitating consumption. So whether it is UPI, whether it is quick commerce, they indeed are having a big impact on the consumption story in India.
Sanjiv, thank you very much. You've given us a very good overview and been very good about answering the questions on some of the things that are changing. I am sure people will have many more questions, but as we've run out of time, is there anything you want to say as we end this webinar?
My only message would be that India is at an amazing juncture today. And we are, of course, a consumption-driven economy, and the growth in the economy does not just lead to consumption, but consumption increase is also an indicator of the health of the economy. We have our issues. Yeah, we still have a large section of the population which lives in rural India. They depend on agriculture for their livelihoods. Agriculture is only 18% of the GDP for the last 30 years, growing at half the rate of the national GDP. And that is the reason why we need manufacturing and services to gallop, so that the disguised unemployment we have in rural India and agri sector, we are able to reduce and help our people in the country get the benefit of better products, better quality products, better brands. And I think the onus is on us, on all of us, to help convert India into a product nation.
Thank you very much, Sanjiv. Thanks very much for spending time with us, and we look forward to continuing our communications in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Adil.